Welcome back to another lesson. In this lesson, we're going to harmonize a song, or actually reharmonize a song. And we're going to pick a famous Christmas carol, Have Yourself a Merry Little Christmas, which sounds like this. And we're only going to take the first couple of bars, and when we're done with it, it's going to sound like this. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to walk you really step by step through what went through my mind as I was reharmonizing this. Now, there's more than one way to reharmonize any song, so there are a few personal artistic choices I've made, which I cannot justify, but there are also a couple of tricks and methods I've employed that can be justified. And those are really the steps I'm going to justify to you. Now, I'm going to use concepts which are fairly advanced, like secondary dominance and tritone substitutions and tensions and so on. So you can use this lesson on two different levels. If these terms mean something to you, then great. You can actually follow along and see exactly what it is I'm doing and just gain some insight into the reharmonization process. Even if they don't mean anything, you can see how basically, first of all, you can learn, I think, a really nice reharmonization of these few bars, which is fun to play. And you can also kind of, I think, get inspired on some level. And the good news is that I have an online jazz piano course here on YouTube, which you can look at. It's completely free, and just look for full jazz piano course from Mangle Project and you'll find it immediately. Now, I'm actually not going to talk for the remainder of this lesson. I'm going to use on-screen annotations to get my message across. If I talk, I think it's going to sound like a ton of technical jargon, which really sounds confusing. It's easier to actually see it on screen. So with that being said, let's get started. Here's the initial harmonization of the song, which uses major triads, and it uses only the tonic, the subdominant, and the dominant, which are the first, fourth, and fifth degrees of the scale. Next step is using seventh chords instead. So C major goes to C major 7, F major becomes F major 7, and G major becomes G dominant 7. If you want to know why the G is different, watch my piano jazz course. Next, we use diatonic substitutions, which means that the first can be substituted for the 3 minor and 6 minor, the fourth can be substituted for the 2 minor, and the fifth can be substituted for the half-diminished 7th. Actually, we're not going to use this particular one, so we're not going to see any half-diminished 7th in this song. Next, I'm going to use the secondary dominant of the D minor 7, which is a dominant 7. There is a bit of tension there, but it's actually intentional. I like a bit of tension in my songs. I think it makes them sound a bit more mature, and it's going to, I think, grow on you as we, I think, progress through the reharmonization. So hang on to it. In the next step, I'm going to use the secondary dominant of the secondary dominant. In this case, I'm going to use that is the secondary dominant of the A major 7th, which is, sorry, the A dominant 7, which is an E dominant 7. And it's going to sound like this. Sorry. Now I'm going to use a tritone substitute or a tritone substitution, and this E dominant 7, that is the secondary dominant of the secondary dominant, is going to be substituted for the B flat dominant 7th. It's going to sound like this. Now, it's worthwhile to actually play the same thing, but add some tension to the chords, and you'll see what a difference this makes. So instead of an A dominant 7, I'm going to play an A augmented 7 with a sharp 9, which is this. And instead of a B flat dominant 7, I'm going to play a B flat 11 with a sharp 9, which is this. Which is going to end up sounding like this. Now let's use another tritone substitution on the second iteration of this. What I'd like to do is substitute the A dominant 7th, or what's now the A augmented 7 sharp 9, for its tritone substitute, which is an E flat dominant 7th, or we're actually going to use the E flat 11th sharp 9. So it's going to sound like this. Another substitution, I'm going to change or substitute the final G dominant 7 for a D flat dominant 7. Again, that's a tritone substitution. So it's going to sound like this. The D minor 7th is actually, it's almost begging for me to add tensions. So instead of playing this, I'd like to play this, especially since my melody note is a G. And this is a D minor 11th, and that's actually what I'm going to play. So it's going to sound like this. I'm going to add tension to my D flat dominant 7. Instead of just playing something like this, or maybe like this, I'm going to add tension. That is, I'm going to add notes on the top, in which I'm really going to play. Well, I'll play them and I'll tell you why I chose them. Something like this. and or maybe like this. And the reason I chose them is that you'll see that I'm playing a D flat 7 in my left hand and a G or a G dominant 7 in my right hand. And these are the two chords that are tritone apart. And one of the nice ways, or one of the nice things about the tritone substitution is that you can actually combine the two chords like a polychord and create really nice tension when you play them together. It still plays the function of a D flat dominant 7, but now you have this nice additional tension here on top. So it's going to sound like this. I'm going to use a substitution for, instead of playing a D flat dominant 7 on the last chord, which is really a G dominant 7, a dominant 5th, I'm going to play a 4 minor before that, or an F minor, or actually an F minor 11, and then resolve into the to the dominant 5th, which has now been substituted for the D flat 7. So it's going to sound like this. It's actually pretty nice to end on a C 6-9 instead of a C dominant 7. I just prefer this sound. Finally, in the first half of this part of the song, to get from the D minor 11 to the G dominant 7th, which I can actually just play like this. This is more of a G 11th. I'm going to add some parallel motion to my chords. Now here's what I'm doing here. Playing a D flat in my right hand and an E flat bass in the left hand, F and C major, G and B major, B flat major. This is basically an A flat and an A flat major 7th, and then my G 11th, which can also be thought of as a sort of an F of a F major on the bass of G. Now, why did I actually choose this motion? There's really no rule behind this. I was personally influenced by listening to American composers like Aaron Copland, who does this quite a bit in his compositions. And I knew I had to start from this and end up with something like this. So honestly, I just played around with the chords and found something that I liked. There's really no rule for this particular last bit of the reharmonization. But it just goes to show that you can get creative. You don't have to follow rules and tricks and whatnot. And actually, I'm sure that some of you don't really like this because it has quite a bit of tension and dissonance. So it's up to you if you want to use it or not. You don't have to, it sounds pretty good without it. And there you have it, the original version, or actually the reharmonized version I played at the beginning. That's it. I know this was a lot of stuff to take in, and this is a complex lesson for probably many of you. So I highly suggest just watching it again very slowly, pausing stuff, and of course, looking at my full online jazz piano course. If you don't understand some of the concepts, uh, this is kind of an advanced lesson, but I hope that it at the very least sort of inspired you to see how the thought process actually works in reharmonizing a song. It actually happens a lot faster in my mind when I play, of course, and that's sort of the end goal that you're striving for when you're learning how to reharmonize. But it also helps that, I hope, at least it helps you guys having kind of a view into the mind of another pianist as he is reharmonizing something. That's it. Having said that, I hope you've learned something interesting, and I'll see you next time.